Lately, two Bitcoin protocol improvement proposals have become the center of a heated debate. Some are even referring to it as a second civil war within the Bitcoin community, nearly 8 years after the start of the infamous block size war. As many of you might recall, that conflict led to the hard fork of Bitcoin Cash. These two proposals are BIP300 and BIP301, which aim to introduce a brand new technology to Bitcoin, Drivechains. In this video, we'll be diving deep into the matter with you. And to make sure you stick around to the end, because if Drivechains are adopted on Bitcoin, they could potentially render the entire altcoin market obsolete. Hey guys, Samantha here, and excited to give you yet another info-packed video from the GA Crypto team to get everyone on board and up to speed about the crypto revolution. To grasp the concept of Drivechain, you first need to understand what a sidechain is. Put it simply, it's essentially a network parallel to the main Bitcoin blockchain, connected via what's known as two-way pegs. Think of this as a dual-direction anchor in a more direct translation. A sidechain then attaches itself to a primary blockchain to leverage its ecosystem and potentially some of its security while providing added flexibility. For clarity, or if you're new to the term, it's simply a blockchain that uses the same native unit of account as another blockchain, referred to as the main chain. So unlike the overlay or L2 systems like the Lightning Network, for instance, a sidechain also relies on a blockchain structure. The goal is to implement features that the main chain can't support, such as smart contracts, instant transactions, enhanced privacy, and even greater transactional capacity. This sidechain concept isn't new. As early as the end of 2014, several major names in Bitcoin development, including Adam Back, Peter Whaley, and Gregor Maxwell, co-authored a paper entitled Enabling Blockchain Innovations with Pegged Sidechains. In it, they introduced various methods to create sidechains, discussing the associated risks and potential applications that could arise. Cryptographer Sergey Lerner also proposed a similar solution as early as 2012 on Bitcoin Talk. Today, on Bitcoin, there are mainly two. There's Rootstock, a sidechain that enables the use of smart contracts, instant transactions, and even a decentralized storage system. And Liquid, the sidechain developed by Blockstream, which facilitates the issuance of altcoins and the execution of confidential transactions with quick finality. For them to operate efficiently, each sidechain stands on two main pillars, a consensus mechanism and the renowned two-way peg or dual-direction anchor. The consensus mechanism allows the nodes of the sidechain to agree on which state of the ledger they should sync with. In other words, it determines who produces new blocks on the sidechain and how these are accepted by the users. It's possible to create a sidechain based on proof of work, but also on proof of stake, and even on the variety of other consensus mechanisms with varying trade-offs concerning the decentralization of the sidechain. The most well-known is probably the Federation of Signatories. It's a system in which several participants are designed to sign blocks for them to be issued on the sidechain. They essentially act as validators. This is the system upon which the Liquid sidechain is based. For example, 67 entities act as network members. These are primarily businesses from the ecosystem, such as Paymium, our partners at GA Crypto that we recommend if you're looking to buy Bitcoin. They are pioneers in the industry, people we wholeheartedly trust. Among the Liquid validators, you'll also find BitMEX, Ledger, and Mempool. Among these 67, 15 act as block signers. They're referred to as functionaries. Practically speaking, they take turns proposing their block, and the others vote to validate it. Once a block gathers at least 11 signatures, it's added to the Liquid blockchain. Another possible consensus mechanism for a sidechain is merged mining. The idea is to allow miners from the main chain, like Bitcoin for instance, to repurpose their hashing work to also secure the sidechain itself. In this scenario, the miners of the main chain also run a node for the secondary chain. Essentially, it's as if the miner is participating in two lotteries at the same time, both with just one ticket. The puzzle solution is submitted to both networks and can be a valid solution for each. This mechanism was first introduced in 2010 by Satoshi Nakamoto himself. In a post on Bitcoin Talk, he suggested to the creator of Bitcoin DNS to establish their own alternative blockchain this way, rather than adding data to the main blockchain. By 2011, the renowned Namecoin project was the first to implement merge mining with Bitcoin. The second major pillar of a sidechain, as mentioned earlier, is what's referred to as the two-way peg. It's this mechanism that establishes the connection between the secondary chain and the main chain. The purpose of the two-way peg is quite straightforward. It should allow for the transfer of the native cryptocurrency from the main chain to the secondary chain, and vice versa. In this way, one can ensure that the value of the token on the sidechain is anchored to the token of the main chain. So, using the liquid sidechain as an example, I would lock up 2 BTC on the main network to obtain 2 LBTC on the secondary network. But of course, this exchange needs to be done securely. If I transfer BTC to Liquid to unlock LBTC on the sidechain of the same name, I want to be assured that my LBTC is in fact backed by an equal amount of real Bitcoin somewhere else, so I can reverse the process whenever I wish. There are 2 various ways to implement a two-way peg. The simplest is to base this exchange on a centralized entity. The trusted third party then takes care of locking up and securing the assets, as well as unlocking the equivalent amount on the chain. But obviously, if we're using Bitcoin, we aim to reduce the need to trust in our transactions. So this isn't really a satisfying solution. Another idea would be to base the two-way peg on a federation of entities. This way, the risk of theft or loss can be spread across multiple players instead of just one. For instance, this is the system that the Liquid sidechain employs. Real Bitcoin are then locked in multi-signature on-chain addresses, the keys for which are held by a federation. In exchange, LBTC is minted from out of thin air on Liquid. This process is known as peg-in. Conversely, during a peg-out, the LBTC tokens are burned on Liquid, and in return, the real Bitcoin are released from the multi-signature addresses held by the federation. Yet another solution exists for implementing the two-way peg. Instead of entrusting its management to a centralized entity or a federation, it's also possible to turn to the miners. Yes, they won't sign with their private key, but rather with their computational power. Let me explain here. If we opt for this two-way peg solution, the Bitcoin are locked in a vault overseen by all the miners of the main chain. To unlock this vault, the miners need to vote by mining a block. Let's put it another way. Every time a miner finds a block, they can cast a vote to open or not to open the vault in which Bitcoin had been locked to issue synthetic Bitcoin on the concerned sidechain. In the case of BIP300, which we're particularly interested in for this video, at least 13,150 favorable votes are required to unlock the funds. So, as you've likely understood, a minimum of 13,150 blocks are necessary to open the vault. In fact, as I just mentioned, miners can only vote when they find a block. Thus, the process takes around 3 months at best. It's also important to note that there's a limit. After 26,300 blocks, the voting ends. This system is designed to guard against theft. If an attacker attempts to make a fraudulent withdrawal from the sidechain, they must announce it publicly beforehand and maintain over 51% of Bitcoin's hash rate for several consecutive months. That's not easy. Now, don't worry, with this type of two-way peg, not everyone has to wait several months to retrieve their Bitcoin from the main chain. This procedure is only for the primary market, meaning to issue or destroy units of the sidechain token. Most people will likely go through a secondary market instead. This is precisely the situation today with USDC or USDT, for example. No one directly fetches them from Circle or Tether, right? You buy or sell them on centralized or decentralized exchange platforms. It would be the same for Bitcoin sidechain tokens. Hey, just a quick reminder, the crypto world is in fact ever-changing, so you don't want to get left behind. Subscribe to our GA Crypto channel to always stay up to date. Let's now get back into Drivechain. Refocusing on our topic, what is a Drivechain? Well, it's simply a sidechain that bases both its consensus mechanisms and two-way peg on the miners of the main chain. For the consensus mechanism of the Drivechain, merged mining, which we discussed earlier, is employed to validate the blocks. And for the two-way peg, the method we just discussed is used, which is based on the miners' votes. The issue is that Bitcoin, as it currently stands, does not support the implementation of Drivechain. That's why Paul Stork proposed BIP300 in 2017, which enables bilateral anchoring with miners, and BIP301, which facilitates the implementation of cleaner merged mining, which he named blind merge mining, or BMM for short. So without delving too deeply into the details, the difference with classic merge mining lies in the block construction. With the BMM of BIP301, it's the Drivechain nodes that gather the transactions into a candidate block, not the miners directly. To validate it, the nodes must then pay a portion of the fees they will collect on this block to the miners of the main chain. The Drivechain block will be validated when a miner on Bitcoin publishes a valid block with a small proof pointing back to it. The advantage of blind merge mining over traditional merge mining is that the main chain miners don't need to run all the nodes of all the side chains, nor participate in constructing blocks on them. That's why it's referred to as blind mining. They also collect the fees related to BMM directly in on-chain Bitcoin rather than in sidechain tokens. It's worth noting that the BIP300 and 301 we've just discussed date back to 2017. They weren't discussed much within the Bitcoin ecosystem. However, in recent days, a massive promotional campaign for Drivechain has been launched, sparking heated debates within the community. It should be said that the implementation of BIP300 and BIP301 could entirely change the way we interact with Bitcoin. And this is precisely one of the many pro-Drivechain arguments. The idea is to make the Bitcoin blockchain the core of a more comprehensive digital ecosystem. Each Drivechain could specialize in specific use cases. There could be one for instant micropayments, another for confidential transactions, and others for a myriad of applications, such as decentralized identities, smart contracts, and even altcoins. The advantage of a Drivechain is that it can leverage the Bitcoin ecosystem with the main chain and its token at its heart, while enjoying a high level of development flexibility. Paul Stork introduces BIP300 and BIP301 as the final tweaks to Bitcoin. He envisions that the base protocol won't need any further modifications since new features could be effortlessly built on Drivechains. It's like the oft-discussed idea of protocol ossification we've touched on in our videos. We might even contemplate using the Lightware network atop Drivechains instead of over Bitcoin itself. This would simplify implementing upgrades without the recurring need for risky soft forks on the main chain. It's undeniable that consensus changes always stir substantial debate within the community, even occasionally leading to splits. Drivechains could effectively sidestep the conflict arising from these changes. In a post-BIP300 era, we could maintain the core layer of Bitcoin as is, only tweaking it occasionally to address fundamental issues, like the 2106 bug, and keep the risks confined to sidechains. For those unaware, we'll be compelled to hard fork Bitcoin's main chain within the next 80 years. That's because the block timestamp is a 32-bit unsigned integer, which will max out on February 7th, 2106. It's somewhat akin to the odometer of an old car nearing 999,999 miles. A bit of a hiccup. But getting back to Drivechains, Paul Stork believes it's more practical and logical to unify the entire crypto realm over Bitcoin. The objective would be to centralize the diverse features of other blockchains, ensuring innate interoperability. As of 2023, barring some unique cases, miners can't engage with multiple blockchains at once. Thanks to BIP301's blind merge mining, Drivechains could leverage the security established on Bitcoin, while miners could reap additional fees from these fresh use cases. Another potential upside of Drivechains lies in their programmability. Today, if you're a Bitcoin developer with a wild idea, well, brace yourself. You might be grappling for years, hoping to introduce the soft fork that facilitates your innovation. And it's even uncertain if it'll ever gain the nod from the, let's admit it, quite conservative community managing the protocol. Alternatively, you might just exit the Bitcoin space and start building elsewhere. A prime example might be Vitalik Buterin's post The Op Return War, who left the Bitcoin realm to create Ethereum. With Drivechains, entrepreneurs can harness the strength of the Bitcoin ecosystem and flesh out their concepts on a sidechain, free from the limitations of the main chain. Now, these pro-Drivechain arguments indeed sound enticing, but hold your horses, because there are also numerous criticisms directed at BIP300 and 301. First and foremost, Drivechains are, at their core, blockchains. Hence, they too grapple with the inherent constraints of such a system. This criticism was notably voiced by Maxim Orlovsky, the brain behind the RGP protocol, during the Baltic Honey Badger 2023 conference. In a nutshell, he depicts this endeavor as a snake biting its own tail, where we're trying to solve blockchain issues with more blockchains. Conversely, systems like RGB or Lightning rely entirely on different structures that can be scaled more easily. But then again, he's sort of preaching to the choir here. Anything else would have been a surprise. Another anti-Drivechain argument is the risk to locked-up assets. The security model of Drivechains is quite different from the main chain. To steal Bitcoin from Drivechain, a miner would need to amass over 50% of the computational power and maintain this dominance for several months to win the vote. Now, Drivechain proponents might argue that this security model is similar to Bitcoin's own. But that's an oversimplification. With Drivechains, even if you control 51% of the computational power for a few months, The consequence could be stealing all Bitcoin from its users. In the case of on-chain Bitcoin, the main chain, a 51% attack isn't as detrimental. At a given moment, this kind of attack primarily results in transaction censorship, which is entirely different. Over time, if the attacker sustains the 51% control long enough, they could in fact start double spending, but it wouldn't affect all users. More importantly, the attacker could only target very recent transactions. So, drawing parallels between fund security on Drivechain and on Bitcoin in this manner is overly simplistic. While there's a relationship, the challenge of a potential attack and its ramifications are not at all the same. Another frequent criticism of Drivechains is their potential impact on Bitcoin mining centralization and miners' economic incentives. As Shinobi's article aptly highlights, indeed, various Drivechains could significantly boost miners' profits. However, as mentioned earlier, to participate in blind merge mining, there's an added verification that incurs extra fixed operational costs. This could benefit major mining players like Riot or Marathon, who tap into new revenue stream that individual miners wouldn't claim. Countering this critique, Drivechain supporters might use the t-shirt argument. The idea is that major mining companies already possess commercial and operational advantages in ancillary activities. For instance, if you're named Riot, you might try to capitalize on the heat dissipation from ASICs. You could also enjoy economies of scale and sell merchandise with the company logo. Conversely, if I'm mining solo at home with my modest S9, I can't negotiate a heat sale contract with my municipality or sell t-shirts bearing my image. In essence, big mining firms already have a plethora of ways to leverage their inertia for profits in auxiliary activities that are out of reach for small miners. Blind merge mining would just be another ancillary activity. Sure, here's a translation that keeps it neutral. Bitcoin experts have been having some lively discussions, and there are real concerns about how BIP300 might mess with the beautifully crafted Nakamoto consensus mechanism. Drivechains bring a new twist, offering a fresh economic incentive for miners, especially concerning Bitcoin locked up on the main network. You might have heard of the two-way peg. That's what we're talking about here. Moving past the potential risks, there's also the big question of whether BIP300 and 301 even have a real use case. We've painted this rosy picture of a future where all altcoins are built on Bitcoin. But what if nobody's interested in using Drivechains? Not to throw any shade, but let's be real. The sidechains currently on Bitcoin, they're pretty much gathering dust. Take the Liquid network, for instance. Samson Mow was all hyped up in 2018, saying it'd be a game changer. But now, it's handling just 1 or 2 transactions per block. That's like 500 times less than what's happening on BSV. It's kind of been a bust. It's fair to wonder if Drivechains will get much love in general. They've got their unique two-way peg and consensus methods, but feature-wise, it's a lot like what Liquid's already serving up. And let's face it, Liquid's not exactly the hotspot. Drivechains are going to be butting heads with big players like Ethereum, Lightning, CoinJoins, and privacy coins like Monero. I'm scratching my head here, trying to figure out why folks would ditch what they know for Drivechains. It's basically offering the same stuff, but with way less network effect. But hey, I'd love to hear what you think about the potential adoption of Drivechains. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Getting back on track, it's worth noting that BIP300 and BIP301 aren't the only ways to introduce Drivecoins to Bitcoin. There are other cool options out there, like using covenants such as any prevow with BIP118 or check template verify with BIP119. And honestly, there's a strong argument against BIP300 and 301 because covenants could give us the best of both worlds. Cool stuff directly on layer 1 while having Drivechains on the side. And hey, don't stress out. We're already cooking up a video just like this one on covenants. It's coming, so stay tuned. To wrap things up, for now, a vast majority of Bitcoin enthusiasts are not in favor of a soft fork that enables Drivechains. Honestly, the BIP300 and BIP301 proposals probably should have bitten the dust and been forgotten long ago. But here's where it gets interesting. Some really big names who are pretty respected in the community are all in for Drivechains, and they're making sure people know it. Among the pro-Drivechain crowd, we have some heavy hitters. Cryptographer Adam Back, the very guy who introduced us to the proof-of-work concept. Star developer Luke Dasher, Fiat Jeff, the genius behind the Nostr network. David Bally, the main man over at Bitcoin Magazine. And let's not forget Ben Ark, a big voice in the Lightning Network space. But, and this is where I'd like you to pay attention, these influential figures might have reasons other than pure tech love. Economic incentives can be quite persuasive after all. For instance, let's not forget that Adam Back is the CEO of Blockstream, This company has quite a number of developers on its payroll. Now, if Drivechains were to be established, they could very well give a much-needed boost to their liquid project, which, right now, is basically a dud. And then there's Paul Stork. He's not just an open-source developer championing the Bitcoin cause. The guy is also the head honcho of Layer 2 Labs. This company recently raised a cool $300 million this past December, largely with an agenda to promote BIP300 and BIP301. Just to give you an idea, Layer 2 Labs has already whipped up 6 Drivechain concepts. One is a dead ringer for Ethereum, and another is pretty much Zcash's twin. So yes, while the contributions and knowledge of these gentlemen command immense respect, we also shouldn't assume they're completely free from influence. Blind faith might not be the best approach here. So what's your take on Paul Stork's proposal? Are you leaning pro or against Drivechains? Regardless, the resurgence of sidechains and Drivechains in the spotlight only underscores the ongoing buzz around layer solutions on Bitcoin. Just in 2023 alone, besides Drivechains, we've seen some fantastic progress in Lightning, the introduction of the unique ARC protocol tailored for micropayments, the wild ride with BRC20 tokens, and advancements in the tech like RGB and Taro. The Bitcoin ecosystem is still in its infancy, and this bear market is teeming with innovations. For instance, another major development right now is the gradual introduction of Miniscript, which is set to drastically change our relationship with Bitcoin. If you're not familiar with it yet, I highly recommend checking out this video.